Welcome to Cross Platform Podcast, where we discuss how to solve productivity problems across platforms. I'm Augusto Pinat,
And I'm Mark Elwicks.
and with this new season, we may need to change the
It's going to
introduction.
be different, I'll
That,
tell you that.
but obviously, I thought about that in the moment I was reading the script to start the show. So, add it to the list.
It's fine. We got to ease people into this new format and this new change. I mean, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, you need to go back an episode, go back to episode 100 and give that a listen. Um, but yeah, it's going to take us a while to settle in to this new format, but I think it's going to be fun. So, so let's start off with what's your first thing on your list? And just before we to recap real fast for anybody,
Yes.
the way we're going to do this now is we're really going to talk about the things that are going on in our worlds, personally and professionally, as related to productivity each week. So whether it's projects, whether it's problems we've encountered, whether it's new products we've found or things that we're interested in, just to give you some real world context on why we're looking at the things we do, why we recommend and we coach the things we do, and also the fact that we have the same challenges that anybody else does. So, all right, Augusto, you're up to bat first.
So the first thing I'm going to talk is about the bag. I got a new bag and I've been enjoying this bag very much. So my issue may be particular or not. I This issue starts 2 or 3 months ago in Personal Productivity Club when somebody said there was I think it was an Asus machine that allows you, a Windows Asus machine that allows you to work portrait on your
Hmm.
machine.
Yeah.
And I love to work portrait. And I was looking at that, and really, it's one of the few times that I have considered should I leave the Apple platform, okay, or the iPad platform to move for a Windows. That's much
Hmm.
I like that. Then as I was thinking, I say, but why I'm not using my iPads that way? And it dinged on me because I use the Apple Magic Keyboard. It's a great
Right.
keyboard, okay, but it forced you to go landscape instead of portrait.
Hmm.
So a couple of dollars later, I went to Amazon and bought a Bridge keyboard. I love the Bridge
Okay.
keyboards. They are aluminum, they type fantastically well. And it gives me now the ability to have each iPad in exactly the same keyboard. That uniformity is something I really like. The problem I found was that now the thickness of my electronics change because was now the
Okay.
iPad and the keyboard, the iPad and the keyboard, the iPad and the keyboard. I can carry up to three iPads. That means three iPads with three keyboards. That's now very thin.
Hmm.
So my small um, bag was not big enough, and that caused a problem. And the problem is Augusto need to be very, very careful on the size of the bag because the larger the bag you give me, the more stuff that I
Okay.
assume that I need to carry. Yeah. Nothing
That's
original,
valid. That's
nothing
valid. I do
original.
that.
Yeah. So I begin the search for a bag. And the thing is, I wanted a bag where I can carry one iPad with one keyboard. Okay. The iPad mini and the keyboard, and not to be insanely big, but I can carry all my gear. And
Hmm.
one day, as I was trying to solve this problem, I said, oh, how about a camera bag? Because a camera bag will give me the
Okay.
compartments for the accessories and the cables and all that. It will be thick enough, but it will be small enough. And in fact, it is. And if you go to personalproductivity.club, you will see the link. I bought a
Hmm.
water-filled bag. Um, the one in
Wait,
the
a water field or a water filled?
it's water-filled. That's a brand.
Oh, the brand.
There,
Okay. I
The
thought it
brand
was
is
like some
Waterfield.
special padding material in there.
No,
So,
no, no,
okay,
no, no,
just
no.
wanted to
The
clarify.
brand is Waterfield, and so there was a brand. There initially were San Francisco Bags, and there were two companies, and they merged at some point. So
Oh,
they
okay.
are or San Francisco Bags or Waterfield, and uh, I bought them as a Waterfield. So for me, they've been Waterfield forever. Um, they, but it's a great bag because it is very small. It fits the iPads, and I can fit one to everything, and it has all the things. The other extra um, benefit is that you can carry that much stuff because as a camera bag, it's really
Okay.
designed to bring camera, maybe a couple of lenses, but it doesn't
Hmm.
have a lot of space. So for technology that I carry, it's perfectly distributed. And because it's a camera bag, you can open it without removing the bag because it's designed for a person to open and pull a camera out. That was again an unintended benefit. So this is the first time I put my electronics on a camera bag, but it's been really, really uh, changed. That allows me to bring the camera, put it anywhere, and it opens towards the front. So I can sit it in front of me, open towards the front, and work with that thing, get the things
Oh,
out.
okay.
It is awesome. I will
That's
have
a neat
never thought
design.
about it, but it's very, very awesome.
It see, this is where I think people get hung up, is they start to look at things specifically based on how they're branded. They say, "Oh, I have a computer, I need a computer bag. I have a tablet, I need a tablet case." But if you look at the requirements that you're going to place on something and then say what types of things will meet those requirements, regardless of what they're called, it's amazing the variety of different options that you have. And you often find things that work out so much better
Mhm.
than, the quote branded targeted device for that particular type of thing. I have something similar, not for gear, but for tools in my workshop. There's a thing called a bucket boss, which is actually a liner that goes in the 5 gallon like Homer or Lowe's buckets, and it's a liner that slips into it so that you can put tools all around the outside and tools around the inside, and then you have the bucket itself as a toolbox. Well, it's incredibly practical because it has no predefined use. You can use it for gardening. You can use it for electronics. You can use it for mechanical tools. You can use it for automotive tools. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. You could use it as an art bucket. You could use it as, anything in your house, cleaning supplies. It's the flexibility and understanding, what do I need this thing to do for me first? And then say, okay, what else can it do? And you were right there at the beginning. I have that terrible tendency. If a bag's got pockets, I feel like there has to be something in the pocket. And I can never find a bag that has enough pockets to satisfy me because I'm like, oh, wait, I may need a pocket for something else. Well, it's this vicious cycle. And then you wind up with a 50-pound bag that you're carrying around.
Correct.
That TSA just laughs at you if you walk up to any place with it because they're like, no, 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 no. You're not getting on any place with that thing. I
Yeah,
do have
that's
to ask a
well,
question though.
yes.
You
What is the
said
question?
3 iPads. Do
Yes.
you seriously go around with 3 iPads?
I go around many days with 3 iPads, yes.
Okay. That's going to seem a little shocking to some people. I have to admit. Now, I say it's a little shocking to me, but if I quantify what I put in my bag, if I have my tablet and I have my laptop and maybe I have a second laptop because one's a client laptop, well, I've got the equivalent plus more weight. So I don't know that it's necessarily that different. Um, but that seems to be one of those things. It's like I guarantee people listening to this would go, "Why would you need 3 iPads?"
Well, in the same way that and we have discussed this, I don't remember the episode in this moment, but what my for me, it's very important to be mobile. Okay. My business was designed to have really 100% mobility. As many, many years back, one of the things that was design into my business, into my life, was that high mobility. I had little kids, and I define as one of the luxuries I wanted to get from this business was to be able to drop the kids at school, pick the kids at school, take them to the activities. Okay. That for me is part of what this business produce. That means I need to be able to be productive anywhere. So, in the same
Mhm.
way that people have the multiple monitors in their office, what I discover is I can have multiple devices. The advantage with the iOS is that if I have data, and the iPads have data, I can make a modification in iPad A and in seconds is replicated anywhere else. So
Okay.
in the same way you work in your office with multiple monitors, I
Mhm.
able to do that with the multiple monitors or the multiple devices in this case.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Just it's one of those things that it's not common for people to have that kind of gear combination. So I always want us to kind of revisit that
No, no,
because I think again it provides an interesting perspective. So
that is
so
correct. And
camera bag.
in Personal Productivity Club, we are going to do program this year, and it's already in the works, and it should be announced or is going to be announced this week, in which we are going to do a program called based on a workbook, on a book called Design Your Life. And this is the kind of things that I did for me years back and that I do
Mhm.
and help clients do. It's not the business, is what is what you want out of the business. We both have the business and the clients, but what do you want? If you get the business and the job in your case, but you never now have time to go to the shop, why you have the business? Okay. But
Yeah.
I mean, in my case, one of the things was I wanted to be able to grab that bag and be productive anywhere, so I could
Mhm.
pick the kids, drop the kids. And it's something that I really enjoy. My daughter swims competitively, and I love that I
Mhm.
can sit there in the side of the pool as she is swimming, and I can be completely productive. And technology has gone to a place that even noise cancellation is so good that you don't even
Yeah.
know that I'm in the pool. So
Yeah, I love that you're framing your work environment around that, that you've made that a core operative, I want to say tenet of your productivity is that it has to be universally capable regardless of location.
mhm,
I think a lot of people can get hung up. Now, granted, it all depends on the type of work you're doing. The type of work you're
agreed.
doing allows for that. The majority of the type of work I'm doing allows for that. There's a lot of people whose work necessitates and gravitates towards a specific physical location, and there's mitigating factors you can do around that. You can figure out how to wrap around that. But just being able to understand that that's part of what you have to do to be productive. And part of that is not necessarily the work itself, but it's how you work better. I mean,
Correct.
I will periodically, I'll be working at my desk for an extended period of time. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. And I'll grab a Chromebook or I'll grab my tablet or I'll grab one of the laptops and I'll just go down a flight of stairs to my dining room table and sit there and work for a few hours. That little change in location can change an entire mindset, that it can help you break through that mental logjam. It can help you refocus on new activities, or it can literally help you say, yeah, I'm in two locations and I can't get anything done today. I guess I'm writing today off. And
That
it's
happened
not
too.
a total,
But
it happens. We
I
we
had in
all
the
have
car,
days like that.
yeah, I have in my car a little wood thing that you put on the wheel, okay, and
Okay.
then give you a little table. And I have this thing so I can hang the iPads and I can basically put three iPads and work
Hmm.
three iPads in the car because sometimes it's exactly what you described. That is the best thing to do. And for me, this is something very particular. Driving is an activity that removes stress out of me. Why?
Yes.
I don't know. Has always done it. So I have been known to, I live in New Jersey. I have the ocean or certain spots where I can see ocean
Hmm.
less than 30 minutes away. So I
Okay.
have known to get in the car, drive half an hour, sitting there looking at the ocean, put my table, and now I'm working in that office looking at
That's
the
not
ocean.
bad. I like
No,
that.
it's
I
not
didn't know
bad.
that was a thing.
Yeah, it
I
is.
like
So,
that.
but that's part of the reason why the bag is important.
Yeah,
How
I can
fast this
totally get that.
bag allow me to change that. Hey, going back to the back for the day, close here at the office, get my bag, and be able to sit in the living room. We are not doing anything. Being able to access
Mhm.
easily everything, all the office in that mobile environment. It's very, very appealing to me.
That's cool. Yeah, mine is less a physical thing this week as it is a project thing. Um, as we've gotten started into this new season,
Mhm.
as we've been kind of rethinking how all this works, not only just for the video cast here on YouTube, but the supporting community at Personal Productivity Club, the podcast itself up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and various places, trying to figure out how to keep all those moving parts in motion without getting run over by them, which is what has notoriously happened. I mean, there's always been so many different things necessary to make these things happen, these shows happen, that I needed to rethink how do I get everything in one spot? How do I get it all under control? And we've talked about this over the past 100 episodes, different tools I've used and different mechanisms that I've put into place and procedures and automations. And this, for me, is a year of simplification. I need to simplify as many systems as possible to make them not necessarily streamlined or if you listen to Productivity Cast, this will raise Ray's hackles. Not to make them minimalist, but to make them as basic as possible so that I don't have complications based on the tools. So what I'm looking at is, can I use the one tool that I've been using all the time as of late, which is Workflowy, to pull all these pieces together? And I'm not stressing on a particular tool, but here's the challenge that I've had. How do I, in one place, for example, I have major projects for writing more articles and scripts. Like I've committed to writing an article and a script every week, recording that article as a script and as a podcast, getting that published out, doing the social media publish, doing the website publish of my Being Productive podcast, but also doing this show and also participating in Productivity Cast and doing regular work. So, how do I keep all these things moving and connected? Well, we've talked about in the past this idea of tagging things. And I thought for quite a while, I'm like, oh, I can do this. I'll tag all this stuff in my systems and I'll say, okay, this is podcasts, hashtag podcast or hashtag productivity cast or hashtag cross platform and be able to bounce back and forth between those and pull it all together. Well, wouldn't you know it? I put all that stuff in place and I couldn't find a blasted thing because there were too many tags. I had tags everywhere. And so many entries were coming into the system, there was no real way to focus on any particular part at any given time. So then I started saying, okay, this week, the challenge of this week, and this being Wednesday, I'm only partway through the challenge, was to find or figure out, was there a better way to do this? Is there a better way? I think I may have found a better way within the tool, but I'm curious based on the tools you use how you handle this as well. So let me explain how I'm doing it now within the tool. Within Workflowy, there's this concept called backlinks, where you can put an entry. All the entries in Workflowy are called nodes. And it's Workflowy, if you're not familiar with it, looks like a giant outline. That's literally all it is. It's an unnumbered outline. And every line in that outline is considered a node. But what you can do is any place else in the outline, you can create what's called a backlink, which connects back to any other node in the outline. So if you have a project, you can say, this is something I need to do for the project, project task one, and you can create a backlink back to a node about that project. It's kind of nice. Where it comes in handy, and this is where I'm
Mhm.
struggling or surprised that I'm finding this functionality, is when you go back to the source of that backlink. So for example, that project name, when you open that node, Workflowy lists all the backlinks that are now connected to that node.
Mm.
So it doesn't really matter where in the outline structure you've connected to that node. You now know all those things. Well, now this is really starting to make sense because I can create nodes for a project. I can create a node for a client name. I can create a node for an individual. And normally you would use tags to do all that. But tags require filtering and it just creates a mess. If I do it by backlinks, now it can jump me back to a page that has that person's name on it and everything that I've backlinked for that person, plus everything else that I manually put in about that person.
Right.
There's a great video on YouTube talking about building a personal CRM using the
Mhm.
tool. And they would create a page. So for example, in my system, there's an Augusto page. And the Augusto, or I should say Augusto node. In the Augusto node, I have manual information about you, but I also have every time I do something with you, every exchange that we have, I'm now backlinking to that page. So if I need to know anything that's going on, I can just click on the Augusto page. This to me is really kind of changing that dynamic a little bit because it's helping me get under control this capture overflow that I seem to be subjecting myself to right now. So I'm curious, and I know we've talked about this in the past. When you're in states of capture overflow, or just got so much stuff coming, how does your system, what do you do in your tools to get that under control or manage that?
So what I have a mind map, okay, that define every project category that I use. Why do I'm saying every project category? Should be project or not project? And I would love that it's that simple in my world, but it's not. Okay. In my world, they are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. There is 9 kind of projects. Okay. Planning stage projects, personal, okay, and then our family, and then there is professional, okay, and then I have 2 tags that I use, one that I call project stage and the other one I call project status, okay. And all those, when I create a project in Todoist or I create a project in Nusby, all these tags apply. What that allows me to do is similar to what you are describing. Okay. When I think, oh, I'm going to podcast, I can go to project stage podcast and it will show me everything. Or I can go, okay, I need to know what is backed up or blocked or on hold. And I can go to that tag and
Mhm.
have all those mixed or filter in the same way. I need to know what projects I have right now with the kids, any of the kids, and I will get all that filter. And obviously I have a someday maybe two. That's one of the categories. But the most powerful one for me is that planning stage. Okay. I have project in there. I have project general information, project research, project not started yet, project planning, and project overdue or backlog. Okay. So when I do my review, I ask myself this question, okay, where is the stage of this? Okay. What is the status of this? And what is the planning stage of this? Okay.
Mhm.
If you are not into any of those, for the project is planned and is moving, it don't need to be on any planning stage, just a regular project. But it really helped me when I look, this I really need to plan again, because the weekly review, it's not the time for that. And because my particular thing, I do coaching and I have three different verticals that I coach. I do personal productivity and there is one day of the week where I look at all those projects that are part of Productivity Voice. And
Mhm.
that's what I do. That is not a weekly review. That is looking at the projects that belong to that. And there is another day that I work into all the projects that are related to the Silva Method New Jersey. Same thing. Okay. It's not a weekly review. It's really look into the details, look into that planning, that research is
Mhm.
work, not review. And then on Thursdays, I tend to do the same exercise for the projects that are for NOSPI Consulting. Okay. And that allows me, when I get to Friday, to really have the opportunity to do a weekly review. Even in the weeks that, let's say, today is insane and I could not look at the projects, didn't have time, doesn't matter. Okay. I know the next Wednesday I
Mhm.
will catch up with that. And then obviously Monday I do this for the personal and family. So it's just a block, an hour in my time because I'm not doing review. I'm just looking at the
Mhm.
project. And sometimes that produce more capture, and sometimes like I need to really book now that half an hour just to think on this project. But that allows me to handle and manage a very large number of projects. So it is not exactly how you define the node, but it is a very it allows me to look at the same projects from many different perspectives just using tags into those projects.
Now you're doing that in Todoist, right?
I do that in
Or is
Todoist,
it
I do that in Nozbe because
okay,
one,
so you're doing
some of my
Todoist and
world
Nosby.
lives in
Okay.
Todoist, some of my world lives in Nozbe.
Okay. That's part of the challenge that I have for myself this year is to narrow down the number of systems because I've
Mhm.
to this point, beginning of the week, I tried to figure out how many different places that I could actually accomplish this. I counted 12 and I stopped counting because at that point I knew I had too many options and I had to narrow it down. So I went down to the basic ones that I use all the time. And I started looking at, okay, does this warrant a to-do list? Does this warrant something like OneNote? Does this warrant something like Notion? And I came to the conclusion that yes, could it be done in almost all of those? Yes, it could. Should it be done? And that's where I kind of said no. And the reason why I said no is because I've placed another limitation. This system that I'm trying to set up right now has to be able to handle not only my professional stuff, but my personal stuff, be mobile friendly, be platform agnostic, be cross platform, ironically, on this show, um, be as simple as possible, be completely synchronized, and being web based, it is. It doesn't actually have a local client, but easy. This is my big thing easy to get the information out of because I've been having some struggles with some other platforms where extracting the information, which we've talked about in the past, you absolutely must be able to do, has not been going as well as I would have liked. So that's a new requirement. But I want to be able to manipulate everything fluidly. And I'm finding that using a simplified tool that has a fairly ubiquitous set of functionality is giving me that opportunity to move things around. It's like, here's a great example. And most tools have this. You have the ability to star things or favorite them or add it to your favorites list. Okay. Almost all tools have that. The question is, what do you do with them? I found that I had gotten myself into the habit that if I star something, it stays there and it stays there and it stays there. That starred item becomes a secondary navigation in
Mhm.
so many of my tools. When I go back and I look across them, it's becoming that quick link, quick reference to get to places and longer and longer. So what I decided is, wait, maybe I'm using that function wrong. Maybe that's not a new navigation. Maybe that's a post-it note tab in the side of my book to jump to a particular chapter or page while I need it. That's a bookmark. but it's a short-term one. So now what I've started doing is using that star function. For example, when I go to my daily journal page for each day, I'll star that one. But at the end of the day, I unstar it and I star the
Hmm.
next ones. So that way I can jump to that one, but I don't always have that there. My old habit would be, okay, I would put a star in there for the month, and then I would put in a star for the day or maybe for the week. I would have it for the top level for my client information, but I don't need to build a secondary navigation. Literally, those are just working reference points, and
Well,
that's what they should be.
and
I
that's the reason of this structure, because this structure that I describe in the show, I can apply regardless the tool. I actually had a client um, which live in his own system because of the client
mhm,
particular requirements. Okay, and I need to live into their Microsoft environment. That is completely fine. Okay, but except the personal projects, because obviously it doesn't apply. The planning stage, the professional, the project stage, and the project status are reflected exactly like that in the system that I can use for them, because that allows me to don't need to think again. One of the things I found with clients who are required to use multiple systems is that they overthink every system instead of look for the standard one. Okay.
yeah,
When
it's
I
terrible
want
when
to
we're thinking
see,
too much.
correct. When I want to see, okay, I need to see what is overdue or backlog. I can
Okay.
open the three platforms, okay, and get that list in seconds, because there is really no difference. The project may be in three platforms, okay, but the definitions of where they are is exactly the same. So I can click backlog in here, backlog in here, backlog in there, and I will get the three list immediately. That brings a lot of power. One of the things that I found when I coach people with multiple systems, the people, not everybody can have everything or want to have everything
Mhm,
in the same place. The secret with these people is build this kind of skeletons where you are going to see exactly the same no matter
yes.
which system you are. Okay, so that way if you click and say, okay, I need to see all my projects that I need to research, okay, and you do it in that work computer, that's fine. You are only going to see
Mhm,
research, and if you notice after you clean that list that you are in that mood, perfect, let me open the other system and continue doing exactly the same. It is no different than when we used to do many years, many moons back, and you have that context at Excel. Because now I can
mhm,
do Excel anywhere. But there was a moment that Excel needed to be in the office, in the desktop. Okay. The laptop was not powerful enough. The phone was not powerful
mhm.
enough. So you have those particulars. This classification give you that similar idea of the context. Okay, what is the context of this project? Okay, oh, this is a
Yeah.
planning project. Okay, then let me look at all the planning, all the projects that I need to plan before I do anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that too because so many people get stuck into having different tools because of the requirements of the things that they're managing, especially
Mhm.
when they compare personal tools to professional tools, because often they don't have control over what professional tools they have.
Right.
They get mandated to use specific tools and particular suites of applications, and they have to operate within that space. Luckily, you and I don't have that challenge. We can use whatever suits us best, which I think kind of raises its own problems because we have the challenge of having so many options. It's easy to get into a situation where everything starts to look like a nail because you have the fanciest hammer out there.
Mhm. And I'm famous for
Um,
that. I'm very good at that.
yeah, and I do it too. I mean, I'll admit now, readily for the longest time, I tried to solve every problem with a database. And I'm a big database guy. I've been a database guy for 25 plus years. Love working with databases. Uh, and I used to try and build a database to track and manage everything. And it has taken me a long time to realize that not everything needs to go into a database.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, I used to laugh at people who would build databases in Excel. They'd go in, oh, why are you doing that? Build a database table, use Access, build something else like that, use Airtable. And then I go back and I look at a lot of it now and I'm like, you know what? A lot of that stuff did not need all that extra overhead. It could have been much, much simpler. And I think that's one of the challenges that I'm looking at personally and professionally right now is this simplification exercise. So as we progress over the next, next several shows, I think we're going to see uh, how this plays itself out. If it does work, I'm going to find out real quick if I'm able to get things under control the way I need them to. But you had made a note in the show notes, something I didn't want to skip over here, something about a battery.
Yes. So this came as a corollary of this bag. Okay. Because what I discovered with this bag is that I move a lot more than I used to. Okay. And I used to carry the charger to connect to the wall. And then I was, getting somewhere and I run the devices out of battery. Okay. That happen every
Mhm.
day. And when I get devices that can last 3 days, I will have less problems, but they don't today. So at some point, I look into battery packs on Amazon and find one that can charge laptops. In other words, have a 65 watts port.
Okay.
And I bought one, add it to the bag, okay, and keep it in the bag. And what I found with that is that I'm way more open to work when I'm anywhere. Because one of the things that I don't think it was conscious for me is
Hmm.
okay, well, do I really want to set up everything? I don't know. It was not a matter of time. It was a matter of what if something urgent comes and I run out of use or the devices. Or
Hmm.
then I start looking and instead of sitting where I wanted to sit, I sit at where the place where I maybe be able to reach to the power plug.
Yeah.
Now I carry that thing with the cables and I can sit anywhere because if I sit, even sometimes during the day, I can say, oh, it's 50%. Pull the battery, start charging the things as I'm working because I know that when I get home in the worst case scenario, I will have full battery and who cares? And the battery can charge overnight. The batteries have improved really that much. And not everybody is aware of that. Um, I don't remember the battery was not that expensive, but
Hmm.
the freedom that that battery has given me. Even I now even the couch, okay, and this may happen to you. I always used to
Oh yeah.
sit in the same corner in the living room, not
Yep.
necessarily because was my favorite corner, but because was the closest to the plug. Okay,
Hmm.
and the cable was measured. Okay, so it reached from the wall to my legs. Okay, and now I can really come there and be more flexible. See how nice that sound. Okay, and sit
It's
anywhere because my kids used to make fun of me. Okay, I used to get to the living room and they were watching TV and I really wanted to work and sit in there and share with
yeah.
them. Okay, but then needed to be whoever was on my spot needed to move and that
Yep.
was not always welcome. Now doesn't matter because if I don't have battery, I pull the battery out of my bag, plug in all my stuff,
Hmm.
and be fine.
That's a great way to do it. I mean, we when we bought our new couch during the pandemic, one of the features that I absolutely wanted to have on it was USB charging ports, so we'd have that flexibility. Unfortunately, I didn't bother to check the amperage on the USB charging ports, so they're only 1.5 amp, so they barely keep my phone, level, much
Right.
less charge it. So they're fairly useless for most devices. I mean, you can sit there if you're watching TV, you can plug your phone in and it'll sit there and trickle charge, but for any other purpose, it's kind of useless. I do have an Anker charging block that I bought. That was a 65-watt charging block
Mhm.
that has regular USB-A and two USB-C ports,
Yeah, I think
which
I have the same
has
one or
been
one very
it's
similar.
the greatest thing I've ever bought when it comes to USB-C charging because I only have one block to take with me for literally all my devices now, because I've gotten to the
Mhm.
point now where everything, I think my mouse is the only culprit. Yeah. My portable mouse is the only one that has a USB, micro USB port. Everything else is USB-C. Um, so that's a really helpful thing. And we'll include links to the Gusto's battery and my charging block in Personal Productivity Club if you're interested. But this kind of thing, this goes back to the bag discussion at the beginning. It's planning the tool set out now much more efficiently. And I think we get better at that over time as we recognize that we can do more and more with less and less.
Correct.
We can get to that point of saying, I don't need all this gear. I don't need this heavy duty block, or making the purchasing decisions that prevent all of that from being necessary. So those are
Well,
good things.
I'm thinking also from a different perspective. When you think on the bag and when you think on sitting on the couch, is what you just said. Well, I thought about the USB, didn't check this. Oops. Okay. But we don't necessarily think where the technology is today that
True.
I can solve a problem that I may have considered a problem that is not a problem anymore.
Hmm.
And
Or
this is
the
one of
solution that
those
was there,
examples.
yeah, the solution that you had doesn't keep working anymore.
Mhm.
We had a car a while ago. I forget which car it was, but the car had one of the old iPhone jacks on it. So the
Okay.
bigger one, the big old blocks. And that was state of the art at the time. And that was so you could plug in and charge, and it was a really cool
Right.
thing. Yeah, but then when everything changed, it becomes this useless port. So you have to look at what is future proofing as much of this stuff as you can. And we talked about it this week in our latest recording on Productivity Cast. We were talking about productivity myths. Um, One of the things I was jumping up and down about, not that I ever jump up and down about anything. I'm a cool, level headed individual when it comes to this
I
stuff,
am not.
just to be clear. Okay. So anybody who's ever listened to this knows how erroneous that is for me. Um, is the fact that one of the things that I make sure that I carry anymore is a notebook and a pen. There
Mhm.
was a period of time, a brief period of time, where I'm like, I'll just carry my tech. I don't need it. If I need to take notes, I'll just write it into my phone, or I'll no, a paper and pen, an analog option. Why? Because they are 100% reliable, consistent all the time. And I can always port that information in. That was another myth that I should have raised. Um, the fact that everything has to be captured digitally the first time. We get into this mindset of, well, all your notes, you should just be typing it in. You should never do rework. You should never do. No, rework is refining in many cases.
Correct.
It is a refinement of the information. You're putting in clarification. How often do you go back and look at your notes and you go, what the heck was that note I took? What is that? I did that just a few minutes ago. I was looking at a note and I'm like, what the heck was I writing about? Because I didn't provide enough clarification around it
Mhm.
because it was a capture. It wasn't a processing of the note. And going from that analog capture to a digitally processed note means that I can refine it and provide it extra details and provide the links and the connections that I need for it to be relevant. So I've started keeping that analog device with me all the time again. And I find I use it time and time and time again. I mean, I've gone back to using index cards all the time.
I love
Some
index
stuff,
cards, have always loved index cards. But it's even I have found, you know, for me, I also carry I do most of my life digital. Okay. But if I'm going to go out for a dinner, okay, most likely
mhm,
I'm not going to carry all the iPads. Okay. I don't want to pull the phone. So I carry that's the moment I have a Levenger thing to put
yeah,
index card and I put it out of my bag with a pen. And that's something that I can pull out in a table, that nobody will feel threatened, that you can pull in there and then take those notes and then capture back.
So,
That is not the same for the people in there when you do it on the phone. At least is my
right.
experience.
No, it's definitely not. So I'll give you a sneak peek. One of my projects for this year is a physical product, something where I can actually produce in my shop and make available to people. And this is the prototype of it.
Ooh,
It is the
nice.
index card rack. And what it does is it allows you to hold 2 full decks of index cards in the back,
Right.
and you can hold whatever index cards you're working on in the front and actually stand them up as you work with them, rotate them down as you're done, and swap out cards as you use them. And sits on your desk, ties up just a little bit of space, and provides a working rapid index for whatever you're doing.
I
So
was
that's
going to ask exactly for that. Can make sure that you can do vertical. I
yes.
buy I don't like uh, uh, as I discussed at the beginning of the show, I like to work on portrait, not
Mhm.
landscape. And it's the same thing with the index cards. I buy the index cards so I can always work them portrait. But I like that you can turn them around as you're showing in the show.
By design, because I know some people like vertical format, I know some people like horizontal format. To be able to have it in
To be able
vertical
to.
keeps everything out of the way, the holders out of the way, and then you can actually drop it into a landscape format if you want. I've actually started to use that as part of my process of using the index cards, because then what happens is as I pull a blank card and I process it through, before it's been entered into my digital system, it stays vertical in the deck. Once I've processed it into my system, I pull it off of vertical, I move it to the back row in a horizontal. So it's already been handled.
Right.
So that's the prototype that I'm working on right now. It's not going to be one of those 3D printed things. It's not going to be nothing wrong with 3D printed and nothing wrong with CNC things, but I'm looking at a design where they're completely handmade, really nice wood and things like that. So we'll see. That's a project that's going on right now. So I'll include some additional pictures of it in Personal Productivity Club. And if anybody has any feedback or thoughts, I'd love to hear it, because at some point I do want to offer it for people if they're interested in it. If they're index card people like you and I, could be useful to them. So,
Yeah.
all right. So this is our first episode of season 2 finished up, I think. Um, Next week we'll just continue with this process and we'll continue with what we've got going on and whatever's
Yeah.
top of mind. So,
And as we discussed, part of the idea is to bring, like you bring the projects today, bring the projects, bring the characteristics, and feel free to, follow us, interact with us in Personal Productivity Club. The links and stuff will be leave in there for you to go and see and check. And let us know what resonates with you, what doesn't resonate with you about this new format. Is this more attractive, or do you want us to continue covering other details, or no, this gets even more exciting? So, as I mentioned, you can interact with us in personalproductivity.club. We have a channel there, and we are Gusto Pinot and Arkelwick. So, see you next time from your favorite device. Thank you.
it's still recording.
This is still recording. Yeah. It's taking forever to close. I don't know
That's
why.
okay, but it's easy enough. I can trim this off. So,
Yeah. That's this is still I click. We're having trouble with your connection ending the show.
well, that's not good. Please tell me it didn't lose all that.
No, I don't think
I'm
so,
sure.
because we will have
Yeah,
here
it
all
should
the
have.
issues.
Yeah,
The day we
it would have
have
popped
the
in there.
issue in the 100th episode, I was completely out.
Yeah, that's true. It did drop all of it. Um, so what do you think? What
I
do you think of
like
the new
it.
format?
I like it a
I
lot.
do too.
I like the and as we get better Hold on, let me try to refresh and see. Reload. This may have been a bad idea, but I know how to do it. StreamYard.
Oh, and he's gone. And he's back.
Well, now officially